Hey, what's up, people? North London Gooner podcast back again, back again, back again. And this time, after a grand first leg against Real Madrid at the Carpets, the Emirates. What a match it was. I'm France. I'm here with Non-Techie, and I'm going to let Non-Techie take it away, really.
What an introduction. I've not stopped smiling watching Clip's interviews since yesterday. Like, no one really gave us a chance when we progressed to this round of the competition. And when it was either the Madrid side, people said, well, Simeone's Atletico will like out defend you and then score, or Real Madrid will just beast you. And it feels like we've overcome, at least we've done the first half of the job. So yeah, I'm really, really buzzing. I'm happy. How about you?
Yeah, you know what? I sort of came into it maybe a tiny bit hopeful, but overall, I was just thinking it's going to be a long, drawn-out match. Let's just make sure we don't get sort of pumped at the beginning and then see how the match goes on from there. But with what went on, everything that went on, I've been grinning from ear to ear, and it has been I almost can't believe it. Certain people are saying, "Oh, they are." Before the game even started, before any of this, couple of days before, certain people were saying, you know, they're absolutely buzzing, they're excited, like it's a final of some sort, or myself, you know, I'm not that chuffed about it. You know, it's another game, it's Champions League, that's good, but we know the task we're up against. I was massively tempered, but what a match. What's a match?
Amazing night of Champions League football.
For sure. So I guess we have some things to go through. We have some things to talk about for real. And this time it is on a good note. It really is.
What? Yeah.
I'll tell you. So take it away. What are we thinking here? So, you know, how are we feeling after this match? What kind of mind state are you in? What is your reaction, your initial emotion? Just let's say before the game, during the game, and then afterwards.
I can't lie. Like when you see this fixture, even if you're coming into this competition, like no matter what anybody says, Real Madrid stand like head and shoulders above any other club. Like in terms of the number of titles they have, in terms of the Champions League, and I think all things being equal, that probably counts for something. So as a club that hasn't really performed well in Europe, you have to respect that. And at the very least, you know, as a football fan, what you want is effort, what you want is a performance. And beyond the result, we got an absolutely good performance. So like my immediate thoughts are, and sometimes we do this to a fault, but our team is very system based. We have a team that's more than the sum of its parts, but we can overcome if, you know, if things work out for us. Where I feel like Ancelotti's more of a, I've seen interviews where people describe him as like less of like a micromanager, and he'll allow you to express yourself and actually find a solution on the pitch. And that was representative in how like Madrid played yesterday. And I feel like they've been a bit like that this season, in the sense like when things are working for them, they have the Mbappes, they have the Vinnies, they have the Bellinghams, who have the individual quality to produce the magic, and they pluck those players from around the world. But I think our system overcame their individuality. That said, there were a couple hairy moments in the first half that had Madrid scored, had Mbappe had his finishing boots, or Vinicius managed to find a pass on him, we could be looking at a very different kind of complexion, and our conversation would be very different. That said, we prevailed, and so you normally wouldn't say Arsenal would be the team to take their chances, and Madrid would be profligate, but here we are talking about a massive 3-0 victory for Arsenal at the Emirates.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. I don't really have too much to add. I think you've pretty much covered all the bases. I think again, Real Madrid were unraveled quite a lot by their own, like you said, their individuality. They have some really gifted players, but I think when it comes down to certain games, and every game's different, but I think, like you said, we've seen it this season. At times, they unravel because cohesion isn't really there. Their ability to come forward in force, but with connectivity between them, is not necessarily always there. The midfield advancing to help back them up if things don't go well. We applied pressure
Mhm.
to quite a lot, especially in that first half. And I really felt, especially in the beginning part of that first half, I really felt like they were coming under pressure, but their ability to relieve the pressure under a more sustained and controlled manner wasn't actually there, which is
Mm.
why I felt like they were ripe for the taking if we managed to get the goals early.
Totally.
Because should the tides turn where they get an incredibly fast break, they have the speed, they have the guile to be able to go one or two men against your back three, back four, and just run them ragged, just slip a goal in. But they didn't manage it.
No, I
They didn't.
remember. I remember maybe a few opportunities. There was a really sloppy Saka back pass.
There still
I
was.
think this is Junior picked up, and then he ran the length of the pitch and didn't square it to Mbappe with enough force. And I feel like with those ones, you kind of have to overhit it. It's just going to be in your
Yeah,
weak foot. Yeah, I think it was blocked out by Saliba. And then Kivior, he's in for Gabriel, who's in my mind been our best defender for a while now. Some people say Saliba, and I hear it, but I think in terms of just being an out and out defender, I think Gabriel's a bit more old school for me.
definitely Gabriel for me.
Oh, you see it as well, because I feel like the new gens just love Saliba.
Saliba, we know is quality. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think he exudes a level of calmness,
Yeah.
a level of soundness when he's actually on the ball. When he takes the ball from somebody, it's calm. There isn't any panic in his game. But Gabriel is a different. He performs in a different direction, and his direction is about the aggression. It's about sweeping stuff up. It's about stomping stuff out before it even gets there. It's about putting his body into people and saying, "Actually, you're getting no further down the pitch. I don't care who you are." But also, I'll unbalance you so there's no pass for you to be giving. He wants his whole body, his weight on a player.
Yes, he does.
Now move. Now move. Now let's see what you can do. As well as the sort of the stomping out of the shots and the block that he puts in, and then the long range of passing that he gives sometimes. So
True.
both of them are very good in very different areas, which I think is why they complement each other so brilliantly. But I feel this season Gabriel's been the standout. He's done his defensive job so incredibly well. He's made sure that the opposition know he's there. They see him, they hear him, and they feel every
It's true. With his scream.
aggression.
Yeah.
They feel it. They know who he's about.
You don't want to play against them.
No, and then on top of that, when Arsenal were deficit in terms of our ability to score goals, when we didn't know where to find them, like a game of hide and seek.
True.
Gabriel Magalhaes featuring Nicholas Yova. banger of the season. This guy was heading him in like nobody's business, and that point was our top goal scorer. Probably still is.
Yeah, there was a point in which he was, and we just almost eulogized about him for like 2 minutes, and just thought about all his strengths, and you lose somebody like that against maybe the best attacking team, at least on paper, in the world. These are the Champions League winners, by the way, the holders that we're facing in terms of Real Madrid. And even if you're a casual, you'll know names like Bellingham, you'll know names like Vinny and Mbappe. And then we replace him with Kivior, who is probably a fourth or fifth choice centre-back, if you really think about it. Ben White can play there, Timber could play there, Calafiori could play there. And there was another sloppy, really early sloppy pass from Kivior that was intercepted. I think Mbappe failed to convert on that occasion. And so, that was really the temperature, the complexion of the first half for me. And I was thinking, if this goes on like this and we don't settle and put some conviction in our passes, Real Madrid have the pace to be able to punish us. But it just didn't quite work out like that. And it felt like the first half was I won't say we didn't respect Real Madrid, but we weren't intimidated by them. I don't know whether it was like the atmosphere in the Emirates. I don't know whether it was the marketing campaign, the let's make this happen beforehand. But all those players on the pitch after a while really settled and sort of took the nerves out of the game. And it was a bit like a boxing match in the early rounds, like when you're feeding and probing and probing.
Yeah.
And I really felt, you know what, if Arsenal can get something out of this, I can see it in how we're set up to play. And we saw the same patterns of play we've been seeing all season. And sometimes it's not worked so well. But that Real Madrid didn't deal with it was weird. It almost felt like they didn't do their homework.
Yeah. Something about it says to me that because of the string of results that they had, and because of this being the Champions League, I think that they didn't do their homework as much as they should have. Sure, they may have understood it theoretically what Arsenal's about to do. I don't think they drilled it home. I don't think they made it so that their bodies knew what to do when Arsenal come to town here. I don't think they necessarily showed Arsenal the relevant respect that perhaps they deserve. One interesting thing, even in the Premier League, is I don't think that Arsenal are the greatest team performance-wise. But you realize that teams, especially lower in the league than us, they know to put some respect on Arsenal's name.
Totally.
They do. They will come up. They will set up with the low blocks, or they'll try and stifle your midfield so that we can't get through. They understand who the personnel are who can really cause a problem. And I feel like Real Madrid stepped into that match feeling like, because of their front-footedness, because of their attacking prowess, that they essentially they're not too concerned with the midfield, not too concerned with, you know, horrendous amounts of shape and
I agree
rigor in the back line. What they are there to do is release the handbrake on the Bellinghams, the Camavingas, the Mbappes, the Rodrigos, the Vinicius Juniors. And as you see, that can work, and it probably does work a lot of the time in their favor, right? But as you can see, at times that disjointedness can fail. It can fall apart. We saw Jude sort of complaining the whole time. As a matter of fact, one analyst, because this is quite surprising, I guess, as a result in the face of a team who know the Champions League at the back of their hand, and then Arsenal who haven't performed all season, and sort of seeing how somehow they were galvanized. Essentially, there must have been some sort of rogue variable that sort of pushed Arsenal to these heights in this particular game. And when they sat down and they sort of viewed all the variables and made all the comparisons, what they basically came down to is it must have been the fact that Dua Lipa was at the game last night.
Trust me,
that's the only thing that's the only thing that seems to be different. And they picked up the performance immensely. So I don't know.
You don't even like Dua Lipa.
She's listen, but if she gets Arsenal to win, then she's my favorite.
That's two jokes, man. And Hathaway is watching as well, so you have to up the list.
Get Dua Lipa down to the Burner Bar as well, so we can pick it up there as well.
No, you're so right. Like I feel like, and there's been this broader conversation around like what I can only really describe as the meta, the way teams play within football. I think Gary Neville was picking up on it on the weekend, saying essentially like Pep's amazing, he's been great. But I think because everybody copies and follows, it like football has become this robotic thing. It's very much positional. It's very much like built it up slowly, and maybe some of the individuality and the variance you get in football sort of been lost.
Yep.
And that's why I find coaches like Ancelotti refreshing. He's kind of like Wenger in a sense, like, and they're from a similar generation where like they will like coach to some extent, but it gets to a point where it's like, you guys are talented. You guys have qualitative and quantitative superiorities in certain parts of the pitch. You've played football long enough, you will figure it out. But I think there are teams you really need to do your homework against, and there's nothing new in how we played, if I'm going to be honest. Like the difference makers is the fact that, and we'll come on to this, in the second half, we scored from 2 brilliant set pieces. And whilst our performance was good without those set pieces, of course, it would be a much tighter game. I felt like we played very well against them, but I feel like it's in part due to their naivety, and I think being 15 times Champions League winners, and I think Ancelotti's probably got 5 Champions Leagues on his own. You probably just turn up and say, "We're Madrid. Let's just play how we play." Whereas I think we did a bit more groundwork in terms of like our one-to-one matchups, our patterns of play. Sorry, I'll just conclude on this. One thing we didn't quite do is normally, when we did that horseshoe before like passing it into like we're very right dominant. So Saka, we actually progressed a lot up the pitch before doing that. So often we reached the middle to final third before giving it to Saka. And he stayed so wide, always had chalk in his boots. And I'm wondering whether that was intentional on our part, because when you pass to your wide man, because he can only really cut in, that can often be like a press trigger. So the moment the ball is like only 80% hit to your wide man, the Alaba can squeeze up on Saka, for example, or Valverde can squeeze up on Martinelli. And so I think we were more measured. Maybe we were concerned about turning over the ball in the middle of the park. And so we wanted to progress until we played that ball. I just thought it was quite interesting.
Well, I think you've hit a good sort of talking point for us to segue into. So in general, how did you find sort of the first half? Because a lot of what you're talking about has reflection in various different halves of the game. But then in terms of our progression, I really feel like that was massively apparent early on in the first half. So how did you find the first half in general? And then you can talk deeper about all of the sort of smaller talking points within that.
Yeah, the first half in general, like bar that shaky starting period, I felt it was quite even. And I was even amazed at how, I wouldn't say we progressed the ball with ease, but like without challenge. And so I started to think, are Madrid setting up, and they sort of defensively set up in something that looked like a 4-4-2 block.
That is correct.
By comparison to us, ours is like very tight, very rigid, very quick to snap into position. Like you can see the shape. Like even if you didn't watch football, you could see those lines. Whereas Madrid's was looser, but I wonder whether it was looser because, well, they've got stars in their team, right? So they may not be as disciplined, but also they've got a quicker front line. So maybe they want to sort of lull you into a full sense of security to make you think you can play that pass and then turn things over when you've overcommitted. So yeah, most of the first half was really just feeding out, but we played pretty much in the same way, and it was just nice to see Saka sort of get some momentum. I think we're too right dominant, and we have been. And it was probably one of my criticisms that we just didn't really test Valverde, who's not a natural right back, and sort of let Martinelli sort of get into his stride. We made a few good chances. I remember Partey having a shot that he should really have hit one of the corners, but he only ended up sort of drilling it down the middle of the goal. Yeah, and then I think Courtois was actually called into a couple of saves, actually, if I recall.
Yeah, Marino. He had an opportunity off the back of a rebounded shot that came earlier, and then he had to make a couple of saves because Marino shot once, saved by Courtois, and then the ball fell right back to him. And funnily enough, both shots were actually taken very cleanly.
Yes, I was shocked.
I'm telling you, I know that unfortunately there are a few players at Arsenal who would not have taken that clean.
Yeah, no,
it was good to see. Yeah,
most of our team.
It was taken cleanly, and it was taken with confidence. So good to see.
And you just hope one of them goes in, right? And I guess as you, in the back of your mind, it weighs on. Okay, so we're Arsenal, and so the back of your mind, that we can see. That's the first thing. The second thing is they're Madrid, and you just think, wow, like if we don't take these chances, we're going to rue these opportunities. And we're at home. We need to take some kind of result over to the Bernabeu. But we ended up the first half 0-0, and it felt like maybe a fair reflection of where the game was in terms of actions from both teams. I don't know whether you had different thoughts.
No, so I did think it was relatively fair. The only thing is, I think Arsenal should have punished them because Real Madrid seems to have only hit us on the break. The majority of their chances came from Arsenal mistakes.
True.
It was poor passing or an inability to defend properly. When you play EAFC, FIFA, or whatever it's called nowadays, and a tackle is made, and for whatever reason, the tackle is it's not clean.
Mhm.
Then you get this weird little bouncy moment where the ball ricochets off the shins and it bobbles, and then all of a sudden it obviously belongs to the opposition. Of course it does.
Of course.
And on they go, on they traipse towards your goal. And this was the exact same
Mm.
scenario that we started to see against Real Madrid. Tackles were being put in, they weren't right, or they weren't strong enough, or just a bit of, a lack of luck. And then before you realize, they're back onto us. Sometimes there was some sloppy passing,
Totally.
which we really need to avoid, and we should know better. We should know to avoid those scenarios against a team like Real Madrid. Those things can happen on the fly, but I think Arsenal have been guilty of this a lot this season.
Mhm.
Snappy passing, poor passing, inability to stomp stuff out in the midfield at times, not closing players down. But I think their chances really came from us,
Totally.
whereas our chances came from us. We were kind of front-footed and willing to sort of press the issue. We made them look like if they didn't want to press us, they would be punished for it. But we didn't manage to punish them for it.
I agree. That was a theme that stuck out for me. We just don't have finishers in our side. And they never rectified it, if I'm going to be honest. So it was like a lack of willingness, maybe a lack of like respect for the threat that was present before them. I'm not sure.
I think so. I think to a degree is a lack of respect. I think even if Carlo Ancelotti sat there and thought to himself, we need to make sure we do X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the players just thought, okay, yeah, but they probably just, I'm Camavinga, and we'll sort it out. We'll sort it out. Don't worry. And then whatever happens, it's not the end of the world. They'll come to our ground. They'll come to our haunts.
Yeah.
And then we'll sort them out.
Yeah, that's so true.
Thinking, worst comes to worst, this ends 0-0.
0-0 or something. Yeah,
maybe Arsenal get a goal, but even if you manage to get out of this with a goal, you're coming to the Bernabeu.
This is what they've been saying. Yeah, 3-0 down.
Anyway, go on.
No, sorry, just on that, I think there's this stat that's been going around that we haven't lost by 3 or more goals for like a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been probably the best defensive side in England for the past couple of years as well. So I think those two things tally up. And so it's a big ask for Real Madrid to actually make this type of comeback. I mean, this is Real Madrid we're speaking about, so like massive respect to them. But I think, well, at least our recent history sort of bodes well for us.
Yeah. Well, here's another stat as well. Real Madrid have never come back from a 3 or more goal deficit in the Champions League. So that also speaks volumes. I'm not one of these people that loves to sort of hark on about the past and but you can't deny Real Madrid's pedigree.
Totally.
But you also can't deny a 3-0 deficit. That's a lot, regardless of past or present or future. So it's not impossible. We've seen it happen before, but it's a lot to ask. And good on Arsenal for putting themselves in that position.
In the group chat, we were like, we need a second, because like, look at the Everton game, for example. Anyway, we're going to get to the goals. We'll get to the goals.
Oh, yeah. Now, just in general, how did you feel about the second half? And then again, you can sort of go into the finer talking points and some of the more standout moments of that second half as well.
Thanks, man. So I think the second half was a bit more open, but I think that was influenced and it was predicated on the game state, and it was the goals. They say goals change games. It really was. So where Madrid were more compact in the first half and positionally disciplined, we didn't really play in between the lines. So you know how we set up. We're nominally 4-2-3-1 or whatever variation it is, but it's a back four. But in the build-up phase of play, it's a 3 and then a 2. And I love
Arteta says there's 43 of these formations. You only
he said this, yes, he does. You know what it is? You and I understand permutations and stuff. But there's no need for him to say that to the president. They won't understand it.
It's so ridiculous. What it is it's true, but when you put it down on paper, to anybody that doesn't see it, they're not going to see it, and it's
I'm
going
going
to
to
sound mad.
Yeah, exactly. And he's the sort of person who likes to be in that detail, where it's like, I don't know, no disrespect to this is the service, but maybe Sean Dash doesn't care.
Sean
But
Dyche Sean Dyche definitely doesn't care.
I'm actually hot. Anyway, I feel that plays is a 3-2, and I'm just highlighting this because that 2 in midfield was Miles Lewis-Skelly going from his nominal left-back position to an inverted midfielder position alongside Partey. Sometimes he'd be the one actually picking up the ball, and Partey would be elsewhere. But we look like a team that's always thinking about how to progress the ball, and our centre backs are comfortable enough to actually like pick their heads up and maybe probe and see where the press trigger looks like it's going to come, and then pass around. And it was wonderful. And I guess Miles Lewis-Skelly and Partey weren't receiving the ball so much like that in the first half. In the second half, legs tire, spaces start to open. Maybe we were trying to take more risks, but then we started to progress the play quicker, which led to, as I highlighted before, that ball being pinged into Saka. We're too right dominant, by the way. And so when that ball is pinged into Saka and he's able to go one-to-one with Alaba, that's when you start to see issues arise. And like, I've been hearing interviews about Saka that I think I've heard one from Lescott. I can't remember who else. People say, listen, he's left-footed, so if he cuts inside, you know what's going to happen. Iron Robin style. So show him around the outside. But then he goes down the outside with strength, and he'll run across you and still bury it top bin somehow. So like, what can you do? And I think that sort of, when you do your homework on wingers, that plays on your mind, because the only thing you can hope for is that you can just go stride for stride with them and hope they make an error. And so around maybe the hour mark, the cuts inside, doesn't he? And I think he's brought down by I think it's by Alaba, and then that's when we get into that free kick situation that leads to the first goal.
Yeah, and that happened around the 58th minute. And as you said, I mean, Saka is somebody who, again, you've seen it all season. One thing that you can definitely say is sort of massive testament to his capabilities, but also to the way he studied. Is the fact that when he first came on the scene, it's who is this kid? Nobody cares. We have some really good defenders. We have a really good left back. We stick him out there, and we don't care.
Yeah.
Then he starts to take people on. He starts to get past people, taking it on the inside, sort of running across the line. And if you don't take care, that left foot is slapping it into the back of the net. Your keeper might not even see it coming past him. You might not have even seen the ball. So then they decide to try and shut him out from going on the inside. So then he goes on the outside. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter for him. So then what do? They decide to double up. They decide to double up. Now, you can do that to Martinelli. You can't do that to Saka. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
He'll have your number. He'll have two people's numbers. It doesn't matter to him. He's that good.
We need to take advantage of that double up, though.
Massively.
I don't think we do.
No. And this is something that would definitely be a talking point, sort of as we round up in one of the videos talking about the season. But 58th minute is when the first goal came for us. After this particular foul that we've just talked about, and the man himself steps up to the plate. Now, take us through that. Talk to us a little bit about it. Jog our memory. It's not that our memory's bad. We want to relive it.
So speaking of jogging my memory, I'm just trying to remember. I think the ball was probably 24, 25 yards out from the goal line. And it's after Saka's being brought down. And so you have options. Odegaard's standing over the ball. Rice is standing over the ball. And Nicolas Jover stands up from the sideline, our like set piece coach. And you know what? One thing I love about the set piece coach standing up is like, I feel like once he sort of gets into that technical area, teams start to think like, what's going on? Like, I don't know if you remember when we played United, I'm digressing, but it felt like we were just railing corners on them. And every time he got up, he was doing hand signals. They may not mean anything. But it just gets people thinking.
Precisely. Yeah. All be mind games, but whatever the case is, he's recognized now. And because of what happens when he stands up in the mind of the opposition, it creates panic, whether they like it or not, whether they want to admit it or not.
A lot of that, you see it. And I love that. it feels like we've got an additional weapon, like it gets the crowd up. And so here we are, Yova's stood up, and then we've got Odegaard and Rice over the ball 25 yards out. We're an hour into the match right now. I don't think it's personally wise to actually strike against Courtois. He's probably one of the best keepers in the world. And like when he stands up, I think he's only a few inches shy of the crossbar. So he's got presence, he's got reach. Now, Rice and Odegaard and the guys have just communicated with Saka, I believe it is as well. And I think Yova's indicating you actually need to cross it into the back post for somebody to run on and bury it. And that doesn't happen. Rice steps up with a similar technique to how he takes corners, actually. And he just sort of swings it outside the four-man wall. It veers like 4 or 5 yards outside of the post and then just creeps in. Courtois is left hanging. When it went in, I didn't even realize when I'm watching you guys, I'm always slow to react to like, is that a goal? Because it just lashed the back of the net and came back out. And it was only when he wheeled away to celebrate and I saw the fans, the flags behind the goal start waving. I was like, oh my goodness, how's he scored that? And then so you go mad. Then 20 seconds later, you watch the replays, and every angle of the replay made me say, it was crazy. And I just couldn't believe he attempted it. But it makes sense. I think he's somebody who, I believe he started off as a midfielder, and then in the adult game, he went to centre-back and then came back into midfield. But he's got a skill set that I think Arteta's trusted him with. And because he's been taking corners for us, I feel like free kicks from that kind of an area feel like penalties for him. So if you've got the technique and you've got the pace for it, do it. And he showed us with that first goal.
Yeah, I agree. I think people look at corners and free kicks as very, very distinct things. For me, they never have really been. I feel like the only difference is I feel like, and this again, it probably actually makes my point for me. I feel like they're not distinct. They're not that distinct. And I think the problem is a lot of people are not good free kick takers. They're also not good corner takers. There aren't that many great corner takers.
It's
and
true.
What's been interesting is the consistency with which both Saka and Declan Rice have been taking these corners and delivering them into good, dangerous areas, often good enough to pick out an individual, i.e. an individual like Gabriel, who I feel like it's not that he's just saying, oh, here's where the ball is, I'm going to run into that space. No, the ball is being whipped into a specific area, almost pinpoint. And he already knows where to go, eat the ball, because the ball he knows in training is already supposed to go here.
Totally.
And what that means is there's accuracy on both parts, and both parts are basically meeting at a spot marked X. An imaginary spot marked X. Both the ball and, say, a Gabriel Magalhaes, they're basically going to meet at that finite point. Because of that, he's able, that accuracy level, the pace and whip needed on the ball, the curve, the bend, you want to call it. He then can just apply that exact same principle to free kick.
Perfect.
With the only caveat being he's not taking it from as acute an angle. That's it.
Totally. It's easier.
It's easier.
Yeah, I love the way you're breaking it down.
He can pick his spots. And we saw that against Courtois. And like he said, it's a bit mad. I mean, Courtois, when he stands up, is gargantuan.
Yeah,
he must have the wingspan of an albatross. I mean, and he's even quite good at getting down. Like he's not, for somebody as tall as he is, even getting down is it's not like you look at him as like, I never get there. Yeah, if you come against Courtois, just drill it hard and low. And all the people have said this, you very quickly come to find out all the fans and stuff that say this, their team goes and faces, they go and come up against Courtois, and then they realize it's not an easy day. It's not an easy day. So Declan Rice stepping up was amazing. That whip around the players was sublime.
With Roberto Carlos in the stands, or you don't.
It's insane. It's insane. He said, Roberto, you see what it is, Roberto.
Yeah,
I see you. I see you. That was immense.
Yeah,
It was
it
immense.
really was. It really was.
Yeah, take us through the second goal.
So if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it was a similar situation with Saka being brought down, which I feel like it probably counts as an assist somewhat. But he was brought down in a similar area. Now this angle was slightly different, but again, Rice steps over the ball, and Courtois approaches it in a different way. So I think he still goes for a four-man wall, but Courtois has the wall sort of cover his right side. And so, as a free kick taker, you'd probably be tempted to put it over the wall into the far post. I have no other way to describe this apart from like Declan Rice just rushes the wall basically, like at Courtois near post. And like, I implore you to watch it again. You know, as a goalkeeper, when the ball's flashed that hard into the corner, you need maybe one or two strides before you can actually launch yourself.
Yes.
Like with a proper like leap. And then maybe who was it? It was the hair that used to go with the offhand and then get up there. A lot of keepers like to go and stretch up. Courtois can't even get that leap in because the ball's whipped that ferociously. It's absolutely wild.
Full
so
strength.
by the time he's just done a reactionary jump, the ball's actually gone in the poster stamp. There's a beautiful screenshot of Saliba looking at the shot. And you can see a shadow cast basically on the framework of the goal of the ball. And it's like the audacity to shoot near post against a keeper like Courtois. But then again, it comes down to belief. And I don't even just mean like, oh, I believe I can do it. But like, to your point about the corner taking, he's done it so many times. Something in his body says, well, I can do it from there. And I'm face onto goal. Let me just run on and try it again. And he hit it so true. I can't imagine there's any other thought in his mind. And I have to say that's definitely one of the best free kicks I've seen in recent memory. But I have to say, for the power of the swerve, the fact that he beat the keeper at his near post, such high stakes. Apparently, he's never scored free kicks in his professional career as an adult. Just hats off to it, man. And he was the difference making that game, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's massive. That's massive. He was the difference maker, and this is interesting for a team that really should have been putting the ball in the back of the net in the first half.
Yes.
From open play.
Yeah.
What's also interesting is it was probably for the first free kick. I'm not entirely sure, but it was probably for the first free kick. Declan Rice steps up to take this. And apparently, Nicholas Yova, with all his hand gestures, hand gestures are recognized by Declan Rice as an instruction to actually whip the ball as a cross.
Yeah.
Well, this speaks even more to the level of belief. It seemed Erdegaard also told him, right, okay, you're going to thread that in. But Declan Rice said to Saka, you know what? I feel like I can have this guy. This is what's wrong with this is mad. And this is not, you're already 3 goals up, so why not?
True.
This is we're 0-0. And I always implore and encourage players to go for it if you have the level of talent, you have the belief. And boy, did Declan Rice not disappoint. So rather than go for the cross, this guy said, forget all of these people waffling, forget the captain, forget the set piece coach, the guy whose job it is to do this. Forget them both. I believe in my source. I believe in what I'm doing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I believe in the occasion. I believe in the night. I believe in the carpet.
Yeah.
I believe in it all. Dua Lipa's in the stands. The floodlights are on. He said there's no. He said I'm taking no L's tonight. No. And honestly, a lot of people are saying the second free kick was much better, or at least it was their favorite. It was the first one for me that is my favorite.
How comes, by the way? Because I was torn as well.
It's the whip around the wall.
Yeah.
That's what I would imagine myself doing, is just whip, like the amount of force, but also combined technique that you need to make that ball curl that way around the wall with such ferocity that the keeper does not see it until it's well past those players. and then not have the time, the ability, or the wherewithal, even with the size of Courtois, the level of experience, the many, many years of the game, he cannot react.
Yeah,
So you've got to ask Courtois, where did you think the ball was?
he had no idea.
Where
He
did you?
should have put another man on the wall.
I think somebody has managed to somehow hack our stream. We might need to. We might. Need
He's got it.
Shall we? Shall we just mute? Shall we just mute him?
Can we kick
Just
Is there any way we can kick this guy?
The funny thing is, you thought you were gonna make yourself solo. Don't mind him. Don't mind him. But it was incredible, Declan Rice. I mean, you can't believe it. Now that second free kick.
Mm.
The other thing that was incredible for me is that maybe it's a Nicholas Jova special, and I imagine it is.
Mm.
Whatever the case is, Arsenal inserted 3 players in that wall.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
3. I have seen some of the worst builders ever imaginable not able to insert 3 bad bricks in the wall. We had Arsenal Football Club coming up against Real Madrid. Carlo Ancelotti, a seasoned manager. Courtois, a seasoned veteran keeper.
Yeah.
Quality, allowing 3 people in that wall and not saying to these defenders. Also, these defenders are no mugs. Not saying to them, look, you cannot have these people sitting in the wall like that.
To bully them, push them about, get them out of your wall, your keeper.
Yeah. And sometimes if you're allowed 10 yards, right? 10 yards in front of the ball is where the defensive line starts from. So if a bunch of guys like that are trying to stand in the wall, what you might have to do is you might just have to put a set of people behind them. And people won't love it because it makes things harder to see when the ball's trying to sort of be played up and above. But honestly, what you encounter if you don't do that is a massive gate that can swing open at any point in time.
It did. It was a direct shot, basically.
And unfortunately, as a keeper, you've now got 3 red shirts, possibly moving in all sorts of different directions. There's white on those shirts. There's white on the sleeves. Erdegaard is wearing an extra set of sleeves. So there's all this red and white flashing about. And you're trying to see where this ball is. And the ball is obviously much smaller than any of these people. The confusion is rife. And the ball was hit so sweetly. Even if there weren't those red shirts there, I reckon that flies in. But you limit your chances massively by what Arsenal did. And I think that was class. I think it was a masterclass. I think that's intelligence on a different level.
Can I just add something to that? And I love it as a fan because you get to really understand maybe some of the rationale behind some of the decisions and the training methodologies. But I'll say from the other side, Declan Rice almost speaks too much. So he was on, I think, speaking to the Prime Video team after the game, and he's just really candid. That's the way he is. That's his personality. But he was going through the rationale between doing the reverse cross to the back post versus actually knows I can actually hit this kind of thing. And I'm like, you're always giving too much away. I just want you to pay attention to that. Declan Rice, actually, but I love that. I think what we're seeing is a guy who, and admittedly, I didn't see him or watch his interview too much at West Ham, but he's thinking about the game at a higher level. I just love that growth in him, to be honest. I think when he first came to the club, he said just the information download is one of the big differences, but I think he's up to speed now and he's applying these things to his game, and it's just great to see.
Yeah, massively. And that was a great dissection of sort of Declan Rice's his outlook on the game and what he brings and sort of how he assimilates and views the match or the matches. Now, NLG, who's just joined, is probably hungover from his jubilation last night.
I know you were
probably just woken up.
I know you were in the Tollington, bro.
I only passed by briefly.
Briefly.
Oh, no, man. Listen.
What is going on? So right now,
Listen.
right now, you've seen. So this is the second half now. You've seen the first goal go in 58. Declan Rice then steps up for this. How are you feeling? What's the energy? What's the thought process? How did you perceive this? Did you think you could do this again?
Bro, when he stepped up to that second free kick, especially after, in hindsight, in retrospect, we now know, obviously, he told Yuva to shut up. He told my man, keep quiet. Yeah. Odegaard also told, as you said, Odegaard also told him, Pillowfoot was trying to chat to him. Rice said, nah, keep quiet. I ain't trying. I don't deal with you, man. Yeah. It's Real Madrid. We don't play with y'all. Second free kick, I'm like, surely not. Firstly, and to your point, the way the wall was set up was towards the left, Courtois' right side of the goal. Courtois has the biggest wingspan, I think, in world football of any goalkeeper.
Oh, I think I've heard something like this.
Like
he's
the
like
biggest
an
wingspan.
orangutan. He's all
He's like a friggin', I don't even know what. So he was so, and rightly so, he was confident that even if I show Rice this corner, but after the first one went in, I'm thinking, okay, now this is a mind game now, because does Rice have the confidence to go for this again? And I'm like, if he decides to go for this again against Real Madrid, the chances of him putting that in for a second time is like 1%. Order rice. Every other day we order rice. Some of us are wise. Honestly, this guy, the technique on the second finish, I don't even know which one's better. That's the debate. Which one's better, the first or the second? I think the whip on the first one is unreal. And what was crazy is after he whipped in the second, they panned to Roberto Carlos in the stands.
Yeah.
I was like, real recognize real. For real. That second one had me like absolutely gassed, because who does that? We haven't scored a free kick since Pillowfoot in 2021.
Yeah.
That's the last time, and Rice has never taken a free kick. But clearly his set piece work that he's been doing on corners must have given him, the confidence to think, wow, he can really go for this. And to do it twice, that's no longer fluke. That's real top quality. Top Bins FC. What can we say?
Yeah, I think it really put a shine on the night, because having been at their necks for a while and not scoring, but then also understanding what Real Madrid can do, and having those sort of brief scary moments where we turn the ball over to them and then they have a massive counter attack. I say massive, but they have a sharp and direct counter attack that you can see the idea of exactly what they're trying to do, exactly how they could potentially score a goal, and how it literally could take just one slip of a player or one extra piece of brilliance or just a shot from exactly where the ball last was taken away from a Real Madrid player. They get in that position again. Just a clean shot from any one of them could end up in the back of the net. I remember Vinicius having an opportunity where he fumbled the shot ridiculously, but that could have ended up in the back of the net. One where Mbappe had an opportunity, and for some reason, Mbappe gets in front of David Raya, and he must think that David Raya is a better goalkeeper than Courtois. He opens his body so early. Early. This is like when you go to the cinema and you're a bit late. You're a bit late. You turn up 20 minutes, and the movie hasn't started. But the movie, actually, there's been no trailers. They have not wheeled up any trailers. You're 20 minutes. The movie started 20 minutes ago. That was Mbappe. Mbappe opened up so early, anybody could view. Anybody could see what he was doing. And he still put it wide. So I really feel like Arsenal got away with some.
Yeah.
Because of the brilliance of Real Madrid.
That will happen.
But those pieces from Declan Rice up and so at that point just said, right, okay, this is the shining light. This is the beacon. This is what Champions League is all about. These moments of special brilliance that you don't really see elsewhere. It's this. This is the magic. And I think a lot of people, definitely myself included, thought Real Madrid were going to bring the magic.
Totally. Can't blame you.
And
Yeah.
to your point, I think two things. One was we all knew, and we were speaking about it in the group chat. We all knew that Real Madrid would have counters and chances, but that we need to take our chances. There's two ways to beat Madrid, in my opinion. Either you take your chances early and you finish and you start burying the game, or you have players that can create moments. Real Madrid are typically the kind of team that don't allow you to have moments. Yesterday, and to add to that, Rice is a player in the 8. I think a lot of us some of us don't feel like he can be an 8 because he doesn't create those moments. An 8 should be a player that can make, create for others, but also have moments in the game. Yesterday, Rice had those moments against the biggest of the oppositions in world football. And we got 2 of those back-to-back in set pieces of all things. And I think this is the kind of thing that I hope invigorates him, because we needed those moments, because we knew we weren't going to be super prolific. Even though we had loads of chances, as you guys mentioned, it could have been 5-6. It really could have been. And I don't think any of us maybe were expecting that, but it came down to the moments that we took and that Rice took by the helm. And also, I just wanted to shed light on players like, I mean, you guys have done already, I'm sure, Skelly, but also Thomas Partey in midfield. Skelly,
TP5.
Skelly, okay, let's start with TP5, actually. Because sometimes, people call him Grandpa Unks, sometimes he's like a Cat D, the breakdown cover, someone offering notice. Yeah. that was him in previous seasons. This season, he has been clutch. Like, deep the midfield he's been up against, by the way.
Yeah.
Deep the midfield he's up against. I know Real Madrid have a lot of players out, but he was so press resistant in that game, threading balls in between the lines, making interceptions. But where was Bellingham?
True.
I thought he was still playing for England.
He was still coming. Yeah, he's still.
He weren't there. So honestly, Partey in that game, real silent, under the radar, 9 out of 10 performance, in my opinion. He allowed I really think the role of a DM in a 4-3-3 formation, or whatever, version of that you want to play, is a true good DM, clean stuff up so that the front line don't even have to worry about really defensive duties.
Yeah.
Unless you really do need to come into banks. And Partey allowed us to do just that. And I think, as we were speaking about as well, Skelly coming from defense, inverting into midfield, creating the extra man. And then Rice was making the 8 runs in beyond sometimes. Oh, just nasty work. Nasty work. It's nasty.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, non-techie, what do you think about some of these players? NLG just spoke about some. He highlighted a few players: Lewis Skelly, TP5, Thomas Partey, for those who don't use that terminology. But non-techie, just give us an overview of what you thought about the defense, and then we can move on to midfield and then the front line. So players like Kivior or whoever else you want to mention, I mean, let's go.
So defenses as a unit, first 5-10 minutes shaky, I can't lie. Not helped by those sloppy passes that we mentioned before. But actually, they had a relatively quiet game, because I think before we even get to our defensive line, our whole team defends as a unit. So actually, Real Madrid, apart from those initial opportunities, didn't transition too well on us after that point. And so Kivior really should have been challenged. Lewis Skelly really should have been challenged more. So that's 2 players on the left-hand side of our defense that they really should have gone for. But Real Madrid, I don't think really trust to attack down Rodrigo's side. So, do you know what I mean? If it was like an Mbappe or Vinny on that side, they'd overload it, they'd overwork it. But I think defense was relatively quiet for most of the game. I really love the way Saliba led the line. Like, in Gabriel's absence, he's more vocal. He tells us when to step up 6 yards. He tells us when to drop off. And it's nice to see Saliba take command there. Midfield is probably, I think, where we won the game, if I'm going to be honest. Like, just in terms of like receiving the ball, just in terms of like relieving pressure. Like you mentioned, their midfield was like Bellingham, Camavinga, Modric, Rodrigo. and we just outplayed them. Like with an 18-year-old Lewis Skelly sort of inverting, it was amazing. And then up front, hilarious.
Marino.
And we'll come on to him. In fact, I might just highlight him right now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, trash game. I hated everything he did.
Moments that matter.
Yeah, I know, but like again, like if my grandma had wheels, right? But he doesn't. He plays like Havertz in the sense like your Sunday league team's missing a couple of players. Or let me call my little cousin who's like a couple of years below us. He doesn't protect the ball. I feel like Camavinga mugged him 2 or 3 times in the same area of the pitch. Now, after the first one, you think, okay, I'm being a bit naive. I haven't had the man on. But after that, have some guile about you. Have some spine. Yeah. And I feel like he just about redeemed himself with his goal. And that goal is so important. 2-0 would be a great scoreline in one game. But over 2 legs, just having that third goal just gives us a bit of breathing room and security. Because going to the Bernabeu will be tough. I'm going to leave it there.
I just, if you would just allow me, NLG, I just want to touch on Marino. Yes, he scored a goal, and that's great. I cannot believe this. Camavinga at one point was sort of moving towards goal, and I think it was Erdegaard that was in front of him trying to shut up shop, and he skills Erdegaard, and I felt like Erdegaard was a bit weak there, and sort of didn't really defend like he was trying to put his all into it, not getting his body across. He sort of put out a lazy foot. Camavinga just absolutely just waltzed past him. But I can kind of get that. A half a second before, he basically just passes Marino, not like I'm trying to get behind you. I'm trying to get beyond you. It was more like, I'm already going in this diagonal direction. You're not going to be able to get in front of me to stop me anyway, not unless you slide tackle. So why in the hell is Marino, who felt no body pressure, he hasn't been skilled, nothing's happened to him, why is he falling over?
Yes, I remember.
He's at Havertz.
Literally.
You're a midfield, you're a left 8. And you're not a quick and mobile, techie left 8.
No, not even Havertz. That's Xhaka. Like similar traits to Xhaka. I remember Xhaka always used to go over the ball and just flop around because he can't move anywhere.
It's embarrassing. Big guy like you, and you're just flopping around, folding yourself, throwing yourself into the carpet. It's diving like Michael Phelps. Get him out of here. Yeah. Like literally, I can't stand that behavior. I remember when Lizzie used to be a very progressive player, and then he started doing that, hitting the deck every 2 seconds.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
About 6 goals in 10 games, the best conversion rate of a striker in the Premier League.
Well, he certainly hits the ground like a striker.
I think that's just, it annoys me more. Just makes me think, what if we have like a half decent, like, I feel like Lacazette on this service could probably put up more numbers, and that frustrates me, you know?
Yeah, and I think if we had a top-class striker, we see potentially what we could be doing even in the league. And that's not to say we're a great team all round. We know we've suffered from a lack of service. We've suffered from a lack of progressive play. We've suffered from slow play, poor passing, slow passing, and just an all-round system suffocation.
Yeah.
But yeah, NLG, again, talk us through it. We're talking midfield, front line. Who's standing out for you? Who's really showing up here?
Yeah. I'm going to start with, on the reverse of that, Odegaard was a passenger yesterday. I don't know what impact he had on the game, other than the press, which he did help with a couple of times, which actually caused Madrid some problems. A passenger. Again, I called out TP5, Declan Rice with his runs. Martinelli did well a couple of times. Saka put in 2 crosses into the box where there was just nobody there. And my friend Lexi even said Nketiah would get onto those. the fox in the box, like we literally put those away. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I feel like we had moments, and in a way, it's nice to see these players step up, because I feel like when the other characters in the team are there, like your Gabriels, like your Sakas, you know, the onus is it's almost like the pressure's on them to perform, and all eyes are on them, and maybe not as much as your Marinos or, you know, Martinelli stepped up the last couple of weeks, you know, getting more in form. So I think, again, yesterday was more of a litmus test for this team in the face of adversity, in terms of knowing we're not going to win the league, but still having to show up every week till the end. It's like, can these players who are on the fringes, even like your Tierney's who came on the pitch at the end, Marino dropping back into midfield towards the end of the game, can they actually step up to the plate? And you've got to say, honestly, down to a man, even if certain people didn't have great overall performances like a Marino, they took their chances when it mattered. And yeah, let's be real. We haven't seen our Champions League record. It's just been phenomenal so far. But we asked the same question with Arteta: can you get it over the line? Now, this is a big one to get over the line, bigger than he could probably ever even dream of. But good first step for sure.
Totally.
Yeah, I agree with all that you said there. It's going to be big tests, even going to the Bernabeu, and then from there onwards. But before that, and as we know, it was a great game. I think everybody's still buzzing, everybody's still chuffed. We could all talk about this till the cows come home. But the league and the season doesn't end there. We now have to come up against Brentford. You've got Brentford on the weekend. What are you guys looking to see? Do you feel like, you know, the league is sort of a tailed off scenario, that there isn't any coming back, there isn't any win for us, so therefore there's a lack of interest from you? Is it apathy, or are you still saying, right, there's some meaning in it, there's something to chase down Liverpool for, or there's something to practice for, treat them like training sessions for our next game within the Champions League, which is, let's say, the one competition that we're still truly in? So I guess I'll give this one to non-techie first, and then NLG will get your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, these are my thoughts. Please don't let me influence your thoughts. But throw the Brentford game. Not like throw it, I'm joking. But like, we fielded a very mixed, rotated lineup against Everton. And I don't just think that was because Arteta wanted to see something new ahead of the Real Madrid game in terms of attacking. So you could think of like Trossard playing in the 9. I think Sterling might have started as well with Waneri. I think it was because he knew like this season really hinges on us progressing in the Champions League. And I think, and it's easy to say in retrospect, that has paid dividends. So with 7 games left in the league, Liverpool are 11 points ahead. I don't really see us catching them. They've got a better squad. I believe Salah and Van Dijk are signing new contracts, and it just feels like they will just do enough, even if they grind out the odd draw win here and there, to really be ahead of us towards the end of the season. If you asked me this last week, though, I would have said perhaps I would have fielded like a mix to a strong lineup, because I don't want to get caught in this battle with the teams that are in 3rd and 4th. That said, as of last night's results, I think 5 teams now go into the Champions League. So even within that sort of context, the dynamic of Champions League qualification changes. So we're not thinking about battling with 4th anymore. You can drop down to 5th technically, and I don't think we will. And so we need to be in a position where we give ourselves the best shot of really shutting out Real Madrid. A no-score draw, a score draw at the very least, or hopefully just to get even a win over there and then control the rest of the game like I've been asking for the whole season, essentially. So that's my opinion. I think rotate his side on the weekend against Brentford so that we can have a full-strength lineup against Real, who really have to go for it, by the way, because they lost to Valencia on the weekend.
Yeah.
And so they're 4 points behind Barcelona, so that plays in our favour.
For me, semi-rotated squad. Nottingham Forest are only 5 points behind us. I think even I often forget how close the teams behind us are to us. We're far from Liverpool, but we ain't far from the rest of them.
It's true.
So Nottingham Forest are up our backside. So if we mess up and we don't take care of these, these draws against Everton because of heavy rotate, I understand Real Madrid is the bigger game, and maybe you can say, oh, rotate against Brentford, and then post Real Madrid will field a stronger team. But you don't field a strong team against Brentford, and if we get smacked up by Brentford, who are very capable of putting goals past us, that could put us down to 2 points between us and Nottingham Forest if Forest win their next game. So, in my opinion, it's a bit of a sticky one. Honestly, yeah, it would be a semi-rotated squad. I'd get Saka more minutes, so we get some strong players in there. I would play Martinelli, so I'd probably field a strong squad, but take him off early rather than rotate heavily.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you in terms of a semi-rotated squad. I'm in two minds because Arsenal are suffering from a number of injuries this season. Some of these, in my opinion, are through a gross amount of overplay because Arteta literally has a first 13, maybe 14. The rest of them are chaff. He doesn't trust them either, even as the person that signed them. Poor management, poor player identification or talent ID, whatever you want to call it. I'm not so worried about the league on the one hand, but then if we slip down to say a third or fourth, then that feels like a robbery as well. So it's a double-edged sword, and I'm in two minds. I will say at the end of the day, as I probably said to you guys before, I'm a massive advocate of facing consequences for your actions. Arteta has come into that league and he hasn't performed well enough for a side that actually wants to win the league, and hence he's second with Nottingham Forest up his backside, and the other club's not too far behind. So semi-rotated squad, and whatever happens, and Arsenal fans and Arsenal, onlookers need to face the brunt of whatever comes, as does Arteta.
True.
And if down into third or fourth or whatever the case may be, then you need to hold the people accountable at the top. And I'm not talking about the board. I'm talking about Mikel Arteta. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, but they didn't give him money to spend in January. They've given him 700 million. Forget January. You've had 5 years to buy players, and you have bought players.
Very true.
Came into the season saying this guy has only signed 8 quality players out of 31, 8 players that can be fully relied upon, that he has purchased out of 31. It's 26%. It's abysmal. So we go into that Brentford game. I think semi-rotated squad. Whatever happens. We kind of do need to focus on the Champions League, going as far as we can, and because that's the only real competition where we can do it. I think the only thing Arteta really has to worry about, that he can maybe semi-control, is making sure that Liverpool do not have a guard of honor at the carpet. I'll not stand for that. I'll not stand for that. They can go and do it at Tottenham. They can go and do it at Chelsea, not at Arsenal.
I hear it. Well, it seems like obviously we're all in a kind of agreement. But yeah, as we know, the bread and butter, the big game is going to be the Bernabeu. So yeah, man, let's see how it goes. But Brentford before that, hopefully it's not as much of a snore fest as Everton. But what are we thinking for that game, score predictions wise?
Another 3-0. Another 3-0. I want another free kick from Declan Rice. I just seem to like seeing those for some reason. I like a goal from Saka, and I'd like Marino to be on the bench for that game, and then hopefully maybe somebody like I don't know, maybe you play Trossard in the 9 or whatever. You can, whatever the case may be. I really want us to get a goal, like Non-Techie said, and just shut it down.
Yeah.
just shut it down. It's Real Madrid. We know how dangerous they are. We know what they're capable of. We know they can potentially come back. We've seen it happen in the Champions League before, where teams have been up 3 goals and it's ended in tears for them. We need to just shut it down. That stadium will be absolutely heaving, and it can go one of 2 ways. Either the fans can be so brutally attacking their own players, and that level of fear may galvanize their players in the right direction. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think their players, their fans are going to be up for it in terms of getting onto our players with the aggression. They'll be loud. They'll be cheering on their team. They'll be egging on their team to fight. And even if they're angry at their team, they will channel that into willing their team on. That's the kind of, they'll be like, go for it, shoot, drive, dribble, pass to Rodrigo, pass to Mbappe. There'll probably be a lot of give the ball to Mbappe type calls. Vinicius Jr., all of that stuff. Luckily, Camavinga can't play.
Yeah.
That red card sorted him out.
It was a yellow.
Yeah, it was a second yellow.
Yeah. No, I'm saying the first yellow actually put him out of contention. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true as well. Like even a yellow puts you out of contention, but the double, the red, just summed up the whole night for them. It was the level of misery, the frustration, all of that rolled into one for them.
If Camavinga wasn't gone already, I think he's gone after. I don't think Ancelotti's having that. Him putting their potential. Well, it was already a pretty much done game, but he's already not been getting minutes like that. So I reckon that's not going to go down well. Him getting the double yellow.
Well, if they go out of the Champions League at this stage, they might be gone together. They might be on the same flight.
Fair enough.
They probably won't beat Barca in the league. And if they got the Champions League now, could be hairy.
Listen, all I'm saying is if Camavinga's on the way out, fly him Emirates to North London, bro. Fly Emirates to North London. That's what I'm saying.
They can fly Ancelotti in as well. They can fly him in. I won't be mad at that.
Nah, fly Don Carlo as well, man. Make Arteta assistant again. Assistant manager.
Yeah, exactly. Coleman. Back to Coleman sitting.
Rich, what you saying score-wise? I don't know. I think we could wrap up.
Yeah, I really want to mix side, and so it sounds really harsh, but like with the context of like what we've done in the Champions League, 0-0. If we field a mixed side, we're not the best attacking side, even on the best of days. So, but I think we've got enough defensively to hold off Brentford.
Okay, no. I'm gonna go 2-0, even though I think it genuinely could be a snore fest because I reckon Arteta will rotate. Clearly, his lineup selection for Everton was an indication of how important he believes the Champions League was, and that win will definitely, I think, make him pick wisely for Brentford. But I'm gonna go 2-0. We'll see what it is. But yeah, people, Rice free kick stunner at our home carpet in N5.
Twice.
The moments, man, twice. So nice. Rice did it twice. Bend it like Dex. What are you even saying? Bend it like Dex. Man, what a performance.
Incredible. And I think on that note, I think we can probably wrap up, say goodbye. But obviously the thought of this game will still be in our minds for a long time to come, I think. Especially to the end of this season, that much for sure. I think that was our most exciting game in terms of the up that we had in that game. Even though good matches have been few and far between, so it's not that difficult to sort of have a standout game. But in the Champions League, we have done well. I think that was the tip of the iceberg, given the team we played, the way the goals went in, the opposition goalkeeper that we're playing against, the manager that we're playing against. And I think it was just an all-round wonderful, wonderful experience and will sort of last in the memory of Arsenal fans. So if nobody else has anything to say, do you guys have anything?
Good for me.
On to the Bernabeu.
On to the Bernabeu. Let's do it. All right, lads. Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye
In a
bye.
bit.